Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session of Franchising with FASA. Our guest today is James Noble, who is the head of wholesale, retail, and franchising at Absa Bank. James is responsible for the development and implementation of Absa's wholesale, retail, and franchise strategy, creating a center of excellence for internal as well as external industry stakeholders. In James's previous position, he was the business development manager for the fuel industry at Absa. He has been involved in the franchise and fuel retail industry since 1997, developing sales growth strategies and solutions for the industry from the banking perspective. So hello, James, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Romani, and thank you very much for having me, and also welcome to all the listeners.
So today we're going to be discussing the current economic climate. We're going to be looking at future trends and possibly funding as well. So what I'd like to do is ask everybody to please hit the like and share button. Share this with someone who you will find this useful. Perhaps somebody in your family, your friends is looking to buy a business, or maybe they're looking to start a business. So this kind of discussion and conversation could be helpful to them to understand perhaps future trends and the current economy. So please hit the like and share button, and let's get started chatting with James. So James, a few weeks ago, we were chatting about the current economic climate, talking about the economy recovering. You know, looking back in history, we've experienced 5 devastating financial world crises: the credit crisis of 1772, the Great Depression in 1929, the OPEC oil shock of 1973, the Asian crisis in 1997, and one that we are most familiar with is the 2008 financial crisis. With the lockdowns and pandemic and everything shutting down, this to me also comes across as a Great Depression. Some are saying that this could be worse than the 1929 Great Depression that we experienced. Other economists are saying that, you know, they're already seeing a turnaround, or it's recovering faster than expected. What are your views on this matter?
Yes, Romani, thanks. I think from an economic perspective, we need to be very cautious. I think due to the lockdown last year, a lot of businesses was obviously impacted very negatively. And if you listen to our own economists at Absa, the view is that this is 3-4 times bigger than what we saw in 2008. So that will obviously give you a good indication of what we are expecting. Because the recovery of 2008, we only started reaching the same number again in 2013. So that was a good 5 years to recover from 2008. If we look at the current state, I think the forecast is that it's going to be actually longer than 2008. But saying that, there's definitely pockets of excellence, and there are industries that show some resilience during this period as well. I think from our perspective, we're fortunate because we're not only focusing on the franchising industry, but we're also focusing on the broader trade industry that covers wholesale and retail. Franchising is the business model in that sector. So we've seen, and the 4 areas that we focus on is the restaurant, the quick service restaurant industry. And I think by now, obviously we all know, especially sit-down restaurants have been impacted severely due to the lockdown measures, the impact of the restrictions on the trade of liquor and alcohol. But your quick service restaurants, your fast foods, they've actually been performing quite well during this period. Because a lot of people trading down, buying from quick service restaurants, making use of their drive-throughs or delivery services that the restaurants, that your sit-down restaurants doesn't have. So in our engagement with a couple of these franchise brands in the QSR industry, they've actually indicated that their freestanding or strip mall type franchises have been performing quite well. Obviously, your shopping center one's still battling because people are avoiding shopping centers. Then if you look at your FMCG market, your grocery market, they were open for most of the lockdown period. But in the beginning, they were limited in terms of the sale of certain items, the likes of your alcohol, your textiles, and if it wasn't essential goods, you were not allowed to sell that. But despite that, you still see, if you look at some of your big grocery brands, some of them still showing good growth for 2020 compared to 2019. If you say, for instance, the liquor sales from their turnover. And in some instances, liquor sales make up 30% of the business's turnover. So you can imagine that's high margins. So that will have an impact on the profitability of those businesses as well. Then the other one is consumer services that we focus on. And a lot of them have been hit hard because of COVID. Also showing resilience. Think of the hair salon industry, for instance. A lot of them starting to work from home, saving on the expensive cost of rentals and so forth. This is also a period where the funeral industry actually boomed. And we've seen some innovative ideas coming from the funeral industry because they were restricted in terms of the number of a funeral. And we've actually seen some of the funeral homes looking at like online type funeral events. The fourth focus for us is the automotive industry. So yeah, there's some mixed feelings about the automotive industry as well. Dealerships have been hit hard. The recovery on the new vehicle side has been very slow. And I think that is going to continue for the rest of this year due to the consumer that is also under pressure in terms of disposable income. A lot of people losing their jobs as well. I think there's a component in the aftermarket that we've picked up, and some of these aftermarket brands that have been performing quite well. And talk about aftermarket, it's especially your services side, and then also the spare parts. And you will even find that some of your well-known brands will buy spare parts from some of these companies that import grey parts, but that is still the original product that they then fit into the vehicles. And then the third focus for us in the automotive sector is the fuel industry. And fuel industry have been hit hard, although it was an essential service. Before COVID, we started seeing that fuel volumes were dropping at service station businesses, and then they were hit very hard in lockdown level 5 and 4. And the recovery has been good, but they're still down about 10% on previous years in terms of volume. And I think that's going to remain, or that's going to be the status quo going forward, because there's a lot of changes that happen. The new way of work, a lot of people working from home, impacting movement of people and using vehicles as transport. So therefore, that will continue to have a negative impact on service station businesses. But on the flip side, again, a lot of the service station owners mentioned, the ones that I've been talking to anyway, that on the convenience store side, they've been performing quite well. Because customers have been avoiding shopping centres and focus more on convenience, they will then rather go to a convenience store at a service station and buy some of the goods there because the queues are also shorter. So I think from that perspective, that's a benefit for the industry, but that shouldn't stop there. And I think the industry should definitely look at enhancing their value proposition to their customers and in new customers to their forecourts and to their service stations. It should actually become service centers, if you want to call it so, where you can get that they need.
Excellent. Okay, so there's So what I'm picking up, and I'm hoping, because some guys have said they can't hear, I'm hoping that's their internet connection and not ours. There's a bit of an echo as well, so I hope everybody can hear. If you've got any comments, please post your questions. We're happy to hear them. So I'm getting the sense that, you know, while we're in an economic crisis, I mean, we've also been downgraded just before COVID hit. So yes, times are tough. People are not spending their money in certain next sectors, but there will always be businesses that thrive. So, you know, as the saying goes, that in the past, we've also seen this over time, that in a crisis, there are lots of opportunities. So it really is a case of whether you're willing to explore those opportunities, be open to what is out there, and and so on. So what are your perception, or what are your thoughts in terms of future trends, opportunities that people can engage in, say, over the next time period that could possibly prevent them from going bankrupt, so to speak, or not being in business?
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the positive outcomes of COVID, is this, let's call it, digital transformation that we've gone through. Everyone is now onto the digital bandwagon. We look at the change in banking in terms of payment options. We've actually seen that the reduction in cash being used as a payment option, and more people opting for card, your tap and go. I've recently seen that they've also increased the limits on tap and go from, I think it was from 200 to 500 Rand, because it's so convenient way of paying, and also obviously avoiding that contact, and maybe standing that chance of picking up COVID or not. Yeah, I think, especially from a digital perspective, and I just take Absa as well, if I look at things that we were studying in terms of online trading that started happening, people making use of online platforms to purchase even their groceries, a lot of their grocery brands launching their delivery services where you can order your groceries online, and that movement happening. So I think from that perspective, there's a lot of opportunity. And if I still look at, say, for instance, the subsector like the restaurant industry, there's still a lot of them not making use of delivery services. I think there's a big opportunity for courier companies or delivery service type companies to come to the front. I've had a chat with a franchisor the other day that advised me that they've got delivery vehicles and scooters, and they're battling to get proper drivers for the scooters and the delivery vehicles. So I think there's a big opportunity from that perspective as well. But yeah, I think out of hardship, that's where normally all the innovation starts happening. And look at the platform that we are engaging on currently. A year ago, we battled to get audiences onto webinars, onto platforms like this, and this has become the new normal. And last year we've hosted numerous webinars, and if I just look at the attendance right through the year, it was actually very, very, very good. And people hungry for information to see how they can also change their businesses and enhance their business offerings. I also, just one thing that I want to highlight, and I think this is also a differentiator that a lot of businesses should look at, is service delivery. I've noticed that service delivery in general is still very, very poor in South Africa specifically. And I think by just focusing on those small type of things, businesses can also make a big change in their bottom line by properly servicing their customers and providing them with good products and services. And what I've also picked up is that a lot of businesses are looking at loyalty programs in attracting customers, and to also retain their customers by locking them in with their various loyalty programs. So I think that's also something that businesses should be looking at is definitely some sort of loyalty program.
I like some of your suggestions. Yes, especially the migration to digital. And I must say, there was a lot of innovation, especially in the beginning of lockdown. Delivery services up all over the show, especially in my area, for example. And I tell you, it was really great service. It was nice to see small businesses coming up to flourish. I'll compare something where what I noticed, for example, in the UK, my husband couldn't find flour for a period of like a month. There was nothing available. So we were what I feel in South Africa in a better position. I also noticed, because we used to online shop, I mean, online shopping overseas is very normal. It's like second nature, you know what I mean? You don't have to leave your house. You just order everything and it just comes to your door the next day. Whereas during lockdown, I mean, now, I mean, it takes 3 weeks for him to actually place an order for a delivery. Whereas with the supermarkets down the road, I mean, I can have my groceries within an hour, which I found very, very interesting. And I do agree that there is loads of opportunities for businesses to increase their services, you know, and we're still kind of needing a service like eBay, like the eBays of this world, or the Amazons of this world. That still hasn't kind of come to fruition in South Africa.
Yeah, and I think also, and it comes back to the service delivery as well, what I've noticed, and there were some comments about it as well. So a lot of these delivery services happening, but they're not on time. So that if you say that you are delivering at 4 o'clock this afternoon, that you do deliver at 4 o'clock and not maybe 5 or 6 o'clock. Because obviously a lot of people planning their schedules as well. And I think a lot of these online meetings and so forth happening, and you can't just quickly, jump up and go and fetch your delivery at the gate. So I think that time years delivery is also going to become a game changer if you can get that correct.
I agree with you. That is so true. I mean, I had a friend of mine who had a package delivered at her house, and the delivery decided not to show up because they called them to say, oh, well, you know, they couldn't get hold of them. But I mean, she's like saying, but I was in a meeting, you know, I couldn't just get up and leave my meeting to go and open the door. So the delivery late, and they were early. They weren't even, so if it was, she knew they were coming at a certain time, but, you know, she had planned for that and they decided to come earlier, you know what I mean? So I do agree with you. I see we've got a question that's come in from Makabo. What are new long-term opportunities did COVID, what other new long-term opportunities did COVID create that will remain even after the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we touched on that, and that's when we spoke about the digital transformation. And I even think going forward, like for instance conferences, where before you were limited in terms of having it online. So I think from that perspective, we will see more of those type of things happening, and it's more cost effective to run it on a platform like this. And I think then, as we also spoke about the online trading, we obviously at Absa, we've seen the increase year on year with online trading and the impact of that. So I think online trading is definitely going to become much bigger. So the impact of that again is going to be that the retail outlets might become smaller because they're going to need less space. But maybe more warehouse type storage that will be needed, where you can store all the goods that will then be distributed from there. I think I'm just thinking now the black kitchen concept that's starting out as well here in South Africa now, where you might have a couple of brands in one location using the same kitchen to, for instance, deliver a Steers product, a Debonair's product, a Nando's product, and a McDonald's product, and so forth. So, and you ordering, not knowing where the product is coming from, but it's coming from a location where all these stakeholders pull together and obviously save on infrastructure costs and therefore become more profitable. The only negative part of that is with the delivery service, that's an added cost. And obviously that can maybe have an impact on the cost of the product that gets delivered to you. But I think, yeah, those are some of the things that I think that will definitely, beyond COVID, that will continue to develop in South Africa as well.
I also think perhaps working from home is going to be a big change and a big trend that will probably stay much longer. Also, possibly people becoming self-employed, because now there's loads of opportunity if people can get access to the internet. There's loads of opportunity and potential for work in the virtual world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, even at Absa, I know we are busy revisiting all our policies and looking at how we will be working in future. And if I just look at what we delivered over the last, I mean, it's nearly a year that we've been working from home. Personally, I've been to the office for 20 minutes and that was it. And the rest of my work I all delivered here from home. So I think going forward also, it's I don't need to be, and I've got a head office role. So I don't need to sit in Joburg to work for head office anymore. I can sit in Cape Town, Durban, I can sit in Washington, and I can work from there. So I think it's going to open up the employment opportunities as well, where one can sit anywhere and you can work for anyone, yeah, as long as it allows you to do so. I think in the banking world, if you just look at that, if you're a teller, unfortunately, you have to be at the branch. But in our role, it's not necessary to be in the office to actually be productive and do your work. I think we've actually become more productive working from home because there's less distractions. But I think also then you need to look at your work environment from home, because if you have a family, if you have children and you need to do homeschooling and all those type of things, obviously it will have an impact as well. But I just look at, I think the number of meetings happening now versus the number of meetings that was happening before COVID and lockdown, I think it more than doubled. So I think a lot of people also become technology fatigued as well, and I think we need to be careful of that. I think also another trend that we started picking up, just thinking of it now, is the pet care industry, because a lot of people, maybe because they work from home, they're alone, they bought themselves pets, and obviously that has a direct impact on the pet care industry as well. So I think also that's something that will in future definitely have a big impact on the way forward, how things will be after COVID.
I see that Derek is also mentioning that most of the franchisees are in retail, high rentals and overheads to cover, limited number of customers allowed to enter the stores at the time. The big landlords are not at all flexible with regards to rentals. As far as I'm concerned, the retail sector has no future. The amount of new shopping centers popping up all over the place makes no sense at all. The consumer then runs to the new center to get the customer back and takes ages. There are so many new rules and regulations. So that's just a comment coming in from Derek. Thank you for sharing. Yes, there is that risk. I do see that as well. But then I suppose shopping malls will have to reinvent the game.
Well, I think also, just maybe elaborating on that comment as well, and I think this is a opportune time to negotiate with landlords as well. I know there are some of the bigger landlords that's maybe more cash flush, that's resistant to negotiations. But I've come across a lot of business owners that renegotiated the terms and conditions of their lease agreements with the landlords, obviously to save on the operational expenses. also latching onto the previous comment about what will remain or what will continue improving going into the future is the rollout of solar technology in South Africa. I think with our current power crisis situation that we're in and the continuous increase of electricity prices is actually starting to become cost effective for residential properties to look at solar. So I think from a franchising perspective, that's a great opportunity to formalize that industry as well. And I know there are a couple of franchises already, but I think there's much more opportunity for solar panel installation type franchise businesses. And I've seen it with a lot of our business customers where they own the property, they install solar, and it's an investment that within a 3 to 5 year period, they recover that cost. And after that period, then it's basically free electricity, if you want to call it so. So I think also that's going to be definitely a big game changer going into the future. And we're going to need the big rollout of solar technology because they, not in South Africa yet, but globally, if you look at what's happening in Europe, in China, in the East, and America, or the USA, is the rise of the electric vehicle. And you're going to need solar to charge those vehicles when eventually they hit our shores. And we're going to be forced to do that because all your big motor manufacturers are looking at electric vehicle models. And some of the big manufacturers, Volkswagen, Honda, Toyota, and so forth, they've got big expansion plans for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, up to 2030. To roll out electric vehicles. I know Volkswagen, for instance, they're talking about selling 2 million electric vehicles by 2028. That's globally. So that's over the next 5 years. So this station type businesses, because we're going to need charging points. So I think that's also something that one needs to look at, is then combining maybe fuel with electric vehicle charging points to start preparing for the rise of the electric vehicle. And it's happening in some other countries in Africa already, where some of their taxi services are run by electric vehicles. So I think it's definitely something that will come to South Africa. We're going to be forced in the end over the next 5 to 10 years.
I see that happening as well. There's a lot of changes coming in the next 5 to 10 years that it feels like we're moving into a sci-fi movie. You know, and you thought you thought they were make believe. These days.
There you go.
Yeah, so wow, I can't believe how time has flown and we've run out of time. Just one last question. What do you feel are, because you're on the FASA committee member, you're on the committee, and I'd like to know from you, what are your thoughts in terms of why is it beneficial to be a FASA member before we close?
Yeah, I think from a FASA perspective, and FASA is the association looking after ethical franchising in the country. And we know there's over 600 to maybe close to 800 different franchise brands in the country. And they're not all running ethical business practices. And I think from let's call it a consumer perspective, so if you are someone looking at buying a franchise, I think it's important to look at whether that franchisor is a member of FASA or not. Because FASA is promoting ethical franchising, and they make sure that all their members are ethical or run ethical business practices. Because I think, especially in the time that we are now, you already have so many challenges. You don't want to end up buying the wrong franchise and ending up in fighting or continuous legal battles with a franchisor, that will also have a negative impact on your business. So I think, especially from an ethical franchising perspective, very important to become a member of FASA and to run your business according to those ethics that the Franchise Association of South Africa is standing for. I know with the Consumer Protection Act and the Competitions Commission, they look after some of the legal things that needs to be covered. But I think, when it comes to the ethical side, I think it's very important, that you associate yourself with brands that are members of FASA.
Thank you for sharing. That's great. That's great. So yes, just to remind everyone to please hit the share and like button if you found this discussion informative, especially to family members or friends or people that you know who are interested in buying or looking for business opportunities during these tough times. So I just want to thank you everyone today for watching, and just to remind you that if you need any more information about FASA membership or would like to, we'll be also, if you'd like to get in touch with James about anything to do with funding and retail, you can just pop you have popped his link in the comment box below where you can get hold of James. And then if you'd like to know anything about the Franchise Association of South Africa, you can find them at www.fasa.co.za. And then one more thing, we have an event coming up on the 12th of March if you'd like to attend, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be inviting Moshe Finn of Kitch IP to discuss the Poppy Act, which is very important for you to know, especially if you run a business. It's also important for you to know as a franchisor, and you might want to invite your franchisees to join in on that one, because it's important to understand how to protect data going forward. You could be up for a big fine. And then later on during that day, we'll also be having Christo Bester from LWO Law, who will be chatting with us about employer-employee relationships, especially in the work and home environment and the things that have changed happening during the lockdowns and COVID. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for watching, and have a super week further, whatever it is you're doing. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.